The night before my wedding, I couldn't stop smiling. Everything was exactly how I'd always imagined. The venue looked like something out of a movie, my dress was steamed and hanging by the window like it belonged in a fairy tale, and my bridesmaids were buzzing around with champagne and wild laughter. I remember twirling barefoot on the hotel room carpet, still in my robe, clutching my wine glass like it was a trophy. It felt magical, the kind of night little girls dream of. I kept thinking, this is it. This is what forever feels like. My heart was full, maybe even too full. But later that night, when the room went quiet and the girls finally drifted off to sleep, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wide awake. There was so much running through me, adrenaline, nerves, joy, disbelief that I was actually getting married. I picked up my phone just to scroll, maybe distract my brain until I fell asleep. I never expected what I saw next. A message request. From someone I didn't know. No profile photo, no name, just one sentence previewed under the icon. You should see this before tomorrow. Curiosity won. I opened the message, assuming it was spam or some weird ad. But it wasn't. It was a video, and then another, and another. At first, I didn't even understand what I was watching. But when the realization hit, when I recognized his face, his voice, his laugh, his hands on women who were very much not me, the world just stopped. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen in silence, watching my future collapse frame by frame. The last message read, "You deserve to know before you say yes." I didn't cry. Not then. Not even a tear. I just lay there, frozen, with my phone still lit up in my hand and those awful videos playing on repeat in my mind. My heart wasn't shattered yet. It was suspended, like it didn't know whether to break or go numb. I kept replaying the clips, as if maybe, just maybe, I'd see something different the second time, or the third. But all I saw was Daniel. My Daniel. Hooking up with strangers in hotel rooms, on someone's couch, even in what looked like his car. The timestamps? Some from weeks ago. Some from this week. I remember sitting up in bed, slowly, like my body finally caught up with the blow. Everything felt too quiet, too calm. And that calm? It scared me more than a breakdown would have. I looked around the room, the veil, the shoes, the handwritten vows in my purse, and it all felt like a cruel joke. I should have screamed. I should have thrown something. But instead, I just stared at the glowing city through the window and thought, what now? Not why me. Not how could he. Just, what now? Eventually, I put the phone down and lay back. But I didn't close my eyes. I couldn't. Sleep wasn't an option. I didn't trust my dreams not to lie to me too. My mind started spinning, not with sadness, but with clarity. I knew I wasn't going to tell anyone. Not yet. Tomorrow was still happening. The wedding would still go on. But not for the reasons anyone would think. Because while Daniel was busy lying to me in private, I decided I'd give him the most public truth of his life. Morning came, but it didn't feel like morning. It felt like stepping into a play I no longer believed in, like I was backstage at someone else's fantasy. The makeup artist arrived first, then the hairstylist. My bridesmaids were still riding that high of excitement, bouncing between hair curlers and mimosas. And me? I smiled. I laughed at their jokes. I posed for selfies. No one suspected a thing. Not one of them looked me in the eyes long enough to see the war going on behind them. Everything looked perfect. And maybe that's what made it all so tragic. My dress hugged me just right. The flowers arrived on time, and Daniel even sent a note saying he couldn't wait to see me at the altar. I read it once, then folded it, tucked it into the bottom of my clutch, and said nothing. There was no confrontation, no screaming match. I didn't need that. What I needed was precision, timing, silence sharp enough to slice through the noise. Before heading to the venue, I slipped into the hallway and made one call, just one, to the DJ. I gave him a new instruction, clear and calm, like I was ordering a coffee. "Don't change anything, except the slideshow," I told him. "Add something at the end. I'll send the files." And that was it. No breakdown, no panic. Just quiet rage wrapped in lace and lipstick. Everyone thought I was walking toward the happiest day of my life, but deep down, I already knew. I was walking toward the most unforgettable one. If anyone had looked close enough that morning, they might have seen it. The way my hands lingered just a second too long on my dress, the slight delay in my smile. But no one did. They were too busy marveling at the decorations, at the way everything seemed to fall perfectly into place. And I let them. Because pretending? It's an art. And heartbreak, when tucked neatly under mascara and bridal silk, can look a lot like poise. I wasn't just walking through the motions. I was staging a masterpiece of self-control. Back in the dressing room, while everyone else buzzed around fixing last-minute details, I sat still. Not crying, not shaking, just still. It was a strange kind of strength, the kind that comes when you've already seen the worst and lived past it. My phone sat face down on the vanity. The videos were still there, waiting like landmines. And I knew every frame by heart, the gestures, the voices, the smirks he thought no one else would ever see. They weren't just evidence anymore. They were fuel. I didn't tell my maid of honor. I didn't call my mother. I didn't cancel anything. I stayed quiet because silence gave me something chaos never could: control. I watched them pin my veil with trembling hands that no one noticed. I said all the right things, smiled on cue, and somewhere deep inside me, something hardened. I wasn't there to be a bride anymore. I was there to bury a lie, one petal at a time. Every time someone complimented how calm I looked, I wanted to laugh. If only they knew. I wasn't calm. I was calculating. I was scanning every second like a chessboard, thinking 10 moves ahead. People think devastation looks like screaming or sobbing in a corner. But sometimes it's a woman standing in a white gown, nodding politely, holding her bouquet like a weapon she hasn't used yet. I wasn't the same Sophie I was the night before. That girl had hope. This one had a plan. I slipped away for a moment, not long, just enough to double-check the files had sent to the DJ. I texted him a simple line: "Play it right after my speech, no matter what." He replied with a thumbs up and a heart, completely unaware of the emotional bomb I'd just placed in his hands. There was something satisfying about it, too. The quiet power of knowing the truth while everyone else clung to a fantasy. My world had burned to the ground, and no one had even smelled the smoke yet. Back at the venue, everything shimmered. The aisle was ready, the music was soft. Daniel's family arrived early, full of excitement. His mother hugged me tight and whispered, "You're the best thing that ever happened to him." I smiled. I nodded. I thanked her. And as she walked away, I thought, if only you knew what your best thing has been doing behind my back. But I didn't say it. Not yet. That truth had a front row seat to the show, and the curtain was just about to rise. As I stood near the entrance, hidden just out of view, I could hear the chatter of guests taking their seats. My name floated through the air in soft conversations, people wondering how I was feeling, how excited I must be. It was surreal, hearing myself talked about like some blushing bride on the verge of her fairy tale. They didn't know I was already grieving something no one could see, not a person, a promise. And I wasn't mourning it with tears. I was preparing its burial. There was a mirror near the door, and for a moment I looked into it. Really looked. I saw a woman in white, but not innocent, not fragile. I saw someone who had learned overnight how to hold her heartbreak like armor. The veil softened nothing. The eyeliner was perfect, sharp as glass. And behind the glossed lips and carefully curled hair was one thought, repeating like a heartbeat. Make him remember this day. Not because it was beautiful, but because it was the day I stopped pretending. The coordinator peeked in and whispered, "It's time." I nodded. My bouquet felt heavier now, like it carried more than flowers. I walked toward the ceremony, each step measured, each breath rehearsed. No one suspected. No one could. I'd spent years loving this man, and just one night learning who he really was. And in just a few more minutes, I was going to give him a wedding he'd never forget, just not the one he thought he was getting. The music started, soft, sweeping, the kind that makes people cry before they even see the bride. I stepped into the light, and for a moment, it felt like everything paused. All eyes turned toward me, phones lifted, mouths fell open. But no one could see what was really happening beneath the lace and satin. My heart pounded, not with joy, but with restraint. Every step down that aisle was a quiet rebellion. Every smile I gave was a lie I'd rehearsed to perfection. Daniel stood at the altar, shifting slightly, trying to hide his nerves. He smiled when he saw me, that familiar crooked grin I used to adore. It made my stomach twist, not from butterflies, but from something much colder. He had no idea, no clue that I already knew, that I had seen it all. And yet, there he was, waiting for me like nothing had happened, like I hadn't spent the night watching him betray me on loop. The audacity of his confidence almost made me laugh. As I reached the altar, he took my hand. His touch used to feel like home. Now it felt foreign, like holding hands with a stranger who knew my name but not my worth. The officiant began speaking, but I barely heard a word. My mind was counting, seconds, breaths, beats in my chest. The ceremony had started, and so had the performance. I looked at the man I was supposed to promise forever to, and I smiled. Not because I meant it, but because I knew something he didn't. The real vows were coming later. The officiant asked Daniel to speak first. He cleared his throat, glanced at his written vows, and began. They were sweet, predictable, full of recycled promises and just enough tenderness to make the guests dab their eyes. I watched him as he said each word, steady and smooth, like he believed them, like he actually meant them. It was almost impressive, how effortlessly he could lie, even here, surrounded by people who loved us, or thought they did. When it was my turn, I reached into my bouquet and pulled out the folded note I'd written that morning. Not the vows I'd originally planned. Those were long gone. This version was brief, polished, just enough warmth to keep everyone smiling. I promised to cherish, to protect, and to honor the truth, I said, steady as ever. No one blinked, no one flinched, but I heard it. That quiet echo beneath my words. A message only one person would understand when the time came. We exchanged rings. I let him slide that gold band onto my finger like everything was real. I kissed him on cue, smiling just the right amount. Cameras flashed, applause erupted. And inside, I felt nothing. Not sorrow, not rage, just stillness, the calm you feel right before a storm hits. Except this storm wouldn't come from the sky. It was already here, in my chest, behind my smile, waiting patiently for its perfect moment. The walk back down the aisle felt surreal, not as a new bride, but as a woman carrying a secret too heavy for lace to hide. People clapped, cheered, threw petals in the air. I waved, I grinned, I leaned into Daniel like the happiest woman alive. And yet, every step away from that altar felt like one step closer to freedom. I wasn't walking into a marriage. I was walking into my final act, the part where truth takes center stage. At the reception, everything was perfect. The flowers, the playlist, the food. Guests buzzed about how beautiful the ceremony had been, how lucky we were, how meant to be it all felt. I accepted every compliment like a toast to the quiet fire burning behind my eyes. Daniel was glowing, smug in his tux, his arm casually draped around me. He leaned in and whispered, "We did it." And I smiled, but not because we did. I smiled because he had no idea what I had done. We took our seats at the head table. The clinking of glasses echoed through the hall. People were ready for speeches, for stories, for love. And I was ready too. Ready to peel back the pretty packaging and show everyone exactly what he'd gifted me in return. They were expecting romance. They were about to get revelation. The clinking stopped. The room hushed. All eyes turned to me as I stood, champagne glass in hand, the train of my dress pooling elegantly behind me. I smiled, genuinely this time. Not from joy, but from power. "Thank you all for being here," I began, my voice clear, calm, every word steady like a scalpel. "It means the world to us, to be surrounded by love, loyalty, and honesty." I let the last word linger in the air. It landed like a pebble in still water, small, but enough to start the ripple. Daniel reached for my hand under the table. I let him. I looked at him, really looked, and I wondered if he could feel it, that tiny shift in the atmosphere. I gave no clues. "Marriage," I continued, "is a promise, not just of love, but of truth. And before we go any further into that promise, I thought it would be special to look back at some of the moments that brought us here." I turned to the DJ, gave him a soft nod. He nodded back and pressed play. The big screen lit up behind us. Sweet music, childhood photos, videos of us laughing on the beach, decorating a Christmas tree, kissing in the rain. Guests leaned in, some wiping tears already. Daniel chuckled beside me, relaxed, clueless. Until the transition came. Until the screen flickered, and everything changed. The music stopped. The screen went black for a heartbeat. Then, a hotel room. Dimly lit. Daniel. Shirtless. Laughing. A woman's voice. Off camera, giggling. Another clip. His car. Parked somewhere unfamiliar. Him leaning in for a kiss that wasn't mine. The room fell silent. Utterly, painfully silent. No more clinking glasses. No more smiles. Just gasps, shocked whispers, and the unbearable soundtrack of betrayal on loop for everyone to see. Daniel froze. I felt his hand tense around mine. Then he pulled it back. Slowly. Like it burned to touch me now. I kept my eyes forward. I didn't flinch. The clips kept rolling, timestamp after timestamp, until even the most naive guest had seen enough to understand. The fairy tale was fiction. The groom was the villain. And the bride? Well, she wasn't the victim. Not anymore. The final frame appeared on the screen. Black background, white text. My voice, recorded earlier, played over it. I now pronounce myself free, and him, exposed. A beat of silence followed. Then I placed my engagement ring, once a symbol of forever, into Daniel's untouched champagne glass. The sound of metal against crystal was louder than any microphone. I looked around the room, met a few eyes, and turned. No crying, no yelling. I simply walked out. I walked slowly, deliberately, the train of my gown trailing behind me like a banner of quiet rebellion. No one stopped me. Not a single person dared to speak. The silence was heavy, but I carried it like armor. Somewhere behind me, I could hear Daniel muttering, stumbling over half-formed excuses. His voice sounded small now, not charming, not powerful, just pathetic. The same man who once promised me forever couldn't even form a sentence when truth stood beside him in heels. As I passed through the grand exit doors, the cool air hit my skin like a second wind. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what I'd left behind. A reception hall full of shattered illusions, unfinished speeches, and a groom who finally got what he deserved. My phone buzzed in my purse. Messages started pouring in, but I didn't check them. Not yet. Right now, I wasn't a bride abandoned. I was a woman unburdened. And as the last notes of that slideshow faded inside, a strange calm settled in me. This wasn't the night I planned, but it was the night I needed. The truth had been ugly, raw and public, but it had also been mine to tell. And I told it, not in anger, not in shame, but in absolute, unwavering clarity. The wedding was over. But my story? It was just beginning. 3 weeks later, I sat in front of a microphone, a cup of coffee in hand, my hair pulled back in that effortless way that comes only after shedding someone else's expectations. I was a guest on a podcast about betrayal and resilience. Apparently, the video of my wedding reveal had gone viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments. Some people called me savage, others called me brave. The truth? I was just done being quiet. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. The host leaned in gently, asked me how I found the strength to do what I did. I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't need to prove anything anymore. It wasn't strength at first, I said. It was survival. When you love someone deeply, and they betray that love so casually, it shifts something inside you. At some point, staying silent felt more painful than speaking the truth. She nodded, eyes wide. And I could tell. This story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to every woman who had ever been made to feel small. Daniel had tried reaching out, of course. Calls, emails, even a letter, handwritten, begging to talk. I never answered. I didn't block him right away. I wanted him to see what I'd become without him. But eventually I did. Not out of spite, out of peace. Because healing doesn't need an audience. And closure? Sometimes it comes not from conversation, but from choosing not to look back. In the weeks that followed, I started building something new. Not a new relationship, not yet, but a new version of myself. I went back to my old hobbies. I reconnected with friends I had unintentionally pushed aside during my engagement. I even booked a solo weekend trip to the mountains. Just me, a journal, and the quiet. There, on a foggy morning with coffee in hand, I wrote something I hadn't dared to say out loud before. I didn't lose a husband. I lost a lie. And the truth was, I didn't miss it. My days began to feel lighter. Not because everything was perfect, but because I had stopped performing for someone who never saw the real me. That's the thing about betrayal. It forces you to meet yourself again. And what I found? She was stronger, smarter, a little scarred maybe, but not broken. Every time I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, I no longer saw the woman who waited for a man to choose her. I saw someone who had chosen herself. The podcast episode aired that Sunday. My inbox exploded with messages from women all over the world. Some heartbroken, some inspired, all of them saying the same thing. Thank you. And that's when it hit me. What happened to me wasn't just a personal heartbreak. It was a collective experience, a mirror for others to see themselves in. My story had gone from private pain to public healing, and that somehow made it all worth it. I ended the podcast with a deep breath and a smile that came from somewhere honest. The host asked if I had any final words for the listeners, for anyone sitting in silence, unsure of what to do with their pain. I looked into the mic and said, "You don't owe anyone your silence. Not your family, not your friends, and definitely not the person who broke you. You are not hard to love. They were just not honest enough to hold it." I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. I was free. After we wrapped, I stepped out into the sun and realized I wasn't afraid of the next chapter. I didn't know what it would look like, or who it would include, but I knew who it wouldn't. I'd spent too long shrinking to fit into someone else's idea of forever. Now, I was writing my own version. One without lies, without half-truths, without performative love. Just me, standing tall in the truth I had once feared would break me. So no, I didn't get the wedding I dreamed of, but I got something better. I got my voice back. I got my power back. I got to walk away with my head high while the world watched. And the best part? I didn't have to scream to be heard. All I had to do was show the truth. And sometimes that's the loudest thing of all.